All right, so welcome back to the channel. So in this video, my friend challenged me to trade just Tesla for 1 month straight. So as you can see, March 6th to April 5th, I day traded only Tesla. And you can see I'm up $8,000, 205, which is nice. But you can see that I put a total of $9 million with day trades to make this money. That's a 0.08% return. So I scalped a lot, and you can see here how much money I was making per trade, and it'll even show the date. So when I was trading Tesla, this is going from April 5th. We're going to go all the way back down to where it has it at March 6th, where the challenge started. And each day I would just try to scalp as much as I can and make what I can. So this is still the 6th on this day. You can see I have about, I think, 12 trades on Tesla. So I have over, you can see here, 3/6/2023. And then you can see like $13, $52, $27, lost 15, 130. And then I traded it all through on March 8th. And as you can see, I had some bigger gains here at 600, 230 that really added up to get to the 8,200. And this is just showing that you can just trade one stock and do well on it. But you just have to be very disciplined because you don't want to get caught holding the bag just trying to trade. But you also, there's many perks of trading just one stock because you can learn how it moves and then you know where the support and the resistance areas are. And as you can see, these are all just mini gains. But all of these mini gains, they add up for a nice monthly profit of $8,205. So I'm going to break down the chart a little bit just to show you where I'm at and what I'm looking for, because we have a few things coming up with earnings and CPI. All right, so you can see, what did I do with this $8,000? So what I did was, as I was making the gains, I started buying things. So I put in the S&P 500, I put $4,500 in. In the real estate index fund, I added $800 to it. I added a $2,000 position at DraftKings, which is already down 17%. And then I bought some JetBlue at $6.51. Then I bought JEPI and JEPQ, which are covered calls, which they are traded on the NASDAQ, and they give you big dividends. So I was just going to try to start adding to those as well. So this was with the Tesla money that I just added a few positions that I'm holding long term. You can see with the HCMC, 97% in the red. So good thing we only bought $100 worth because I have 27,000 shares. So maybe this will grow in like 20 years or they'll just go out of business. So as you can see, this is the 5-year chart on Tesla, and I just drew out some key points where I think there's resistance and support. So as you can see at the 163, this is where we had that massive rise. So you can see that Tesla in the past, this is in 2020, went from 166 up to 414. This was all obviously pre-split. But now, if you zoom in closer, you can see that right over here, at this area, it's playing in between 163 and 218. So I've just been covering, trying to day trade in this area, because this is where the most likely support is. And if you look here at 163, this is where it broke through. But the further confirmation of this is just scrolling all the way to the left. And you can see it right here is your 163 breakout. So this is a clear sign of support. And I'm wondering, when we see earnings, if Tesla sells off, there's a potential scalp opportunity at this level at 163. Let me just bring up the chart to make it a little easier to read. There's a potential scalp here at 163. So I want to just keep watching Tesla to see, with the earnings coming out on the 19th and CPI on the 12th of April, are we going to start heading down to this support area at 164? Now, how did I actually scalp and how did I look for this? Let me just get into that, just show you some tips. All right, so Tesla likes to move very violently. And a good example is looking in this zone, which we're going to zoom in. So we'll show the time frames here as well. So if you look here, this on the bottom, it'll show the time. You see 9:30 on April 6th. So what happens is, I mean, I'm not just using RSI, but I'm using in combination with price action as well. And there's always like psychological support at the whole numbers, like 180. So just something to always keep in mind: 180, 190, about 200, 150, there's 160. There's always, like, for some reason, psychological support, any stock you trade. Now, you always have to have a stop loss, obviously. But when I was trading this stock, it was 9:32 in the morning, and you can follow along right here where you can see the time. And you start to see some massive selling off. And I try not to buy unless RSI is less than like 30. And this is only applied in the first like 15 minutes of the day because volatility is the highest where you have the most volume, like these green volume bars. The volume is just much larger if you compare it on an overall scale. So like look, this is at like 9:37 and the volume never reached this after this. This is 7 minutes into the market and the volume level has never reached this the rest of the day. So your most volatility to day trade and scalp for 20, 30, 40, 50 cents comes in those first 15 minutes. Obviously, if it just keeps selling off, you just have to be careful. But what I try to wait for is I try to wait for these long wicks because these wicks here is showing that the sellers tried pushing it down, but then the buyers just bought it right back up. So it just pushed right back up. And you can see on this chart right here that we had 179.74 and then it just buys back up here, right back up to, you can see the price on this side, 180.40. And the most important confirmation for me is waiting for this green candle to make a new high compared to the previous red candle. So it's called first candle to make a new high. So I'm waiting for this. Sometimes I'll take a stab at a whole level to 180, which I did. I'll try to sell into this 40 cents up. But I want to make sure that this candle is going to break this previous red candle at 180.6. Once it does that, that's my entry to get in, and I'm really trying to make profit on this candle. And then I'm making an entry at like 180.7 because it's going to move quick. And then I try to get it at the next whole number, 181. And look, there's resistance. We're almost at the 181, and then it starts pulling back. So that's what I try to do. I try to trade the morning open because you have the most volatility when it comes to these stocks. And they will have massive moves down where Tesla's trading at 184 and then it moves all the way down 4 or 5 points. And the RSI, if you look down here, is already 28. So that's nice to see that you're seeing oversold in the first 10 minutes of the market. And unless there's catastrophic news that they're going out of business or whatever it is, then I'll stay away from them. But if they're not, I watch the price action. I wait for the wick to see when they're actually going to be, to see when the buyers start coming in and the bears can't push it down anymore. And then I look for my entry at the first candle to make a new high, which would be right here. This candle right here, first candle to make a new high. And there's my entry with my stop is going to be the low of this previous candle. So if I enter here at 180.65, I'm going to stop out at 179.74 because it wants to keep trending down. I don't want to be holding that position. I'd rather just take the loss and then look for the next entry. All right, so those are little tips and tricks. And I just wanted to show that when I'm trading, I use Fidelity. I don't use Webull. I use Webull on a separate laptop just to see like the charts because it's just smoother than Fidelity, but I just like trading on Fidelity. But I just want to show you the two things that I use. I really don't use MACD. I can pretty much get rid of this at this point, but it is useful because you can see this is yesterday's chart and you can see here at this point, right in here is where the green started crossing over the red, which your entry would have still been higher. It would have been at like 182.74. And let me just draw it so you can see it. I'll just put like a resistance line so you could see it. Where this crossed over right here, in the green, you would see, no, it's not letting me drag it, hold on. You would see that, and this is why trading on Fidelity sometimes is rough because it doesn't move as smooth as Webull, but it crossed over right at this point at 182.5. And that's not even at the bottom. The bottom was 180. But this is where the buyer started coming in, and then you had that nice move from 182 up to 185. So you can see that there is potential to use the MACD, but I usually don't use it. I like to just use as reference, and it depends on the price action, is I will use the RSI on the bottom, and this is not a telltale sign. You could buy RSIs low and still lose. It could just keep dipping. So RSI you have to take with a grain of salt, because if you bought every time it was low, like here's a good example right here, you didn't make any money. You just bought here and then it's just consolidated and maybe it went up 50 cents. So I only like to really use RSI when it's like 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. because that's the most volatility, aka the most volume, as you can see in these bars. Like I said, the volume has never been this high the rest of the day. So traders, the best traders, I feel like, only trade really in the morning. They get their gains and they get out. But when you see massive moves like this, like I have the 5-minute chart on, in 5 minutes, Tesla went all the way from 184, which let me just draw a horizontal for those that are newer. So you can see here at 184, and I'm focusing on this red bar, 184 all the way down, and within 5 minutes down to 179. That's a massive move when you really think about it. 5 minutes, it's down 5 points. And I'm going on the 1-minute chart, it's all just red. So I trade with a 1-minute chart and a 5-minute chart when it's the beginning of the day. But I've always already looked at the bigger picture and looked on a 3-month chart to see where could the support be, which I already have lines drawn, as you can see, at 180. Because right here is where it had resistance, it couldn't break through, and then it broke through. Then it broke back through, it retested, held the 180, and then went back up. So then I have an idea that potentially 180 could be the support. So that's how I try to trade it. I try to look for the RSI 1 minute, 5 minute, make sure it's oversold, less than 30. But then really, I'm watching the price action and I'm watching those wicks. And even on Fidelity, because that's where I saw the wick, at the 180 mark, you can see it down here. So this is where the 179 is right here. And you can see that the sellers tried selling it. And look at the volume coming down. The volume on these red bars is decreasing. So there's not as much selling pressure. And then look how big this green volume bar is. So they just bought that right up. And then you have to think the sellers got it all the way down to 179.77, but look how quickly it bounced back up. And you can see, let me just move it on the green line so you can see it. If it just lets me grab it for some reason. No, it's not working. Okay, so right here you can see the low, which is right here. The low of this candle was 180.07 and it popped right back up right above it. So here was the low at 180.07 and it was all the way down to 179.77, popped right back up. And then now it's starting to make higher highs. It's not retracing back down to this previous low, which was 179.77. So that's indicating that we are starting to get a nice little trend change. And by trend change, I'm talking about you have this trend right here is broken. And now instead of that trend, you're going to start to get this trend where you can see you have, let me just draw it like this so it stays. You have here to here, and it's just showing you that there's more of a support. It's making higher highs. So here and then here, it's not pulling back as much. And then as you can see, it actually held from this point here at 180.83 up to 180.42. And then that's your indication to go long. Tesla's not selling off anymore, and it's going to continue. And then you have your new trend. So you have to draw trends as the day's going on to see where it is, because you can draw trends from every single area on the intraday. And then just see how it's gliding up it. And then it breaks it, and then it supports it again. So that's just what I do when I day trade. I try to trade like the first 30 minutes to 1 hour, most volatility, get to see what it's doing. And I look for those sharp pullbacks, because the people that are shorting Tesla up here, or the algos, they're going to cover at some point. And you're going to see it, because you're going to see that it's not going to make that new low anymore. And you're going to have that low RSI in the 1 minute, 5 minute, especially if it's only 30 minutes into the day, even the 15 minute. And you can get some nice scalps of $50 to $1.50 out of it. It depends how many shares you're doing, but you could just keep scalping it. Just keep making money off it as long as you follow a stop. And I just follow a stop at the previous candle. That's just what I wanted to show you with the previous gains of just trading Tesla. I'm going to continue trying to trade Tesla. We'll see if I can do it again for another month. I don't know if I'll be as profitable, but it was definitely a strong month trading.